Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
Today I'm joined by Jeanette Hultstrater, CEO of NLSDays, a Swedish CDMO specialising in advanced biologics. With around 10 years of experience spanning GMP production and preclinical development and leadership roles at Valneva and AstraZeneca, Jeanette brings a unique perspective on both sides of the CDMO-sponsor relationship. Today we'll be exploring how small to medium-sized CDMOs can become true partners rather than just service providers, and what biotech companies should be looking for when choosing manufacturing partners. So thank you for joining me, Jeanette. So you've had quite a varied career path, from preclinical R&D at AstraZeneca to managing director at Valneva, and now obviously leading NorthX. So what drew you to the CDMO side after years of kind of being on the customer side?
Well, thank you for having me on the podcast, Dora. I've always been driven by putting science into practice so that it can become therapies to patients. And initially it was more on the mechanistic side, try to understand how the pharmacology works or how drugs get into the body. But I also realized that, in the end, you need to have something that you can hold in your hands, a product. And that's where manufacturing comes in. So at NorthX, I can now help others to make that leap. So from interesting biology, fantastic innovations towards a drug or a product that you can give to patients and really make a difference. So bring innovations to life is what we do all day and enjoy doing it.
That's lovely. And so having worked on both sides, what's the biggest difference in perspective? What do you see now that you never kind of appreciated before?
Starting at Astra and AstraZeneca, that's of course a huge company. So it's much more that you work in specialized teams. You collaborate also, but it's on a broader global setting. So you do your own thing and you explain to others. Whereas in a smaller company or a medium-sized company, whether it's a biotech or it's a CDMO, you are much more involved in the whole picture, which, I like. On the other side, if you're really a specialist and want to dig into the details, I think working for a large company like AstraZeneca is probably a good place to be. For me, having seen both sides of the table has been enormously rewarding. I really enjoyed my time at AstraZeneca. I learned a lot, and now I can make use of that because I understand how developers think, whether they are the smaller biotech or the larger pharma. So working for Valneva, we had a bit of both. We have both the developing side, but also the manufacturing side, really making a product that could reach patients. And now at NorthX, we help others that are having very bright ideas, and we can do the manufacturing and make sure that they can test these ideas on patients and bring to the market.
So tell me a bit more about NorthX Biologics then. You position yourself as going beyond CDMO to be a true partner. What does that actually mean day to day?
Well, we say beyond CDMO as NorthX Biologics because we see ourselves as more as a service provider, as a more partner to the biotech's success. I would say we invest emotionally, intellectually in their journey, and it becomes our journey. So when their product reaches the patients, that's our success too. And we can bring our CMC experience to the table, so process development, optimization, and then the GMP manufacturing. And we want to bring a flexible, collaborative mindset so that it's not a rigid that you give me a recipe and I perform it and then I hand it back to you, but it is really an intimate collaboration to contribute to the success of the biotech.
And so NorthX has quite a broad capability set: proteins, extracellular vesicles, plasmid, DNA, cells, and other advanced biologics. For a medium-sized CDMO, that's ambitious, to say the least. So how do you maintain that deep expertise across all those different modalities, the kind of balance of breadth and depth?
Yeah, on the one hand, it is a breadth of modalities, but on the other hand, it starts off with either microbial or mammalian expression systems. And from that, we have a deep knowledge in this area, how you can culture cells or bacteria, and then how you can do the downstream processes. Then you can use that knowledge to make different modalities, as you say, proteins, including antibodies, but extracellular vesicles or plasmid DNA. Viruses, viral vectors. It sounds very broad, but there are some similarities in how you bring those about and how you optimize processes and develop products.
Yeah, that's interesting then. So a lot of those manufacturing capabilities are actually very similar among the modalities that you.
There are differences, of course, but there are technical similarities, and it's also the way of thinking, how you develop a process, optimize a process, test it. There are definitely learnings that you can use from one modality that you've produced to the other. So that's what we build upon. So we build on our experience, and especially with the extracellular vesicles, outer membrane vesicles, which is sort of a newer modality. We can definitely build on the experience we have from producing proteins and culturing cells and culturing bacteria.
And is that where you started initially as a company, from proteins and expanded out?
Proteins and plasmid DNA is what Northex started off with in the beginning, but quite quickly already after that, because it was the vision for Northex to have this advanced biologics portfolio, so be able to anticipate on the needs of biotech and bring our experience to good use.
That must be difficult, predicting the needs of biotechs. How do you go about doing that?
Well, it's all about communication, as we just had in the workshop. Communication is key between biotech and CDMOs, but it starts before you have a working relationship. So you need to be out there. We have a chief technology officer that is always on the lookout for what is happening in the field, which modalities are coming up, and how can we anticipate and prepare for taking those on. So it is really having an open mind, being aware of what's happening in the scientific community.
Because we're recording this at Nordic Life Science Days, and we've just come from your really enjoyable workshop on growing the CDMO partnership alongside clinical phase development, where you explored some of the real challenges biotech companies face as they scale. Let's talk about some of the takeaways then. So at the workshop, what did you see as the key to building a strong, lasting relationship between biotech company and its CDMO partner?
I think one theme that came through strongly, both from the panel and from the audience, is that you need to build this relationship, and it needs to be built on trust and respect, and respect for each other's competences. And the biotech usually has a lot of competence, of course, in the biology, but maybe also related to clinical work, but maybe not so related to CMC, and that's where the CDMO can bring the expertise. Either they have regulatory experience, or that needs to come from the CDMO as well. So you need to make sure that you can complement each other. So communication, flexibility was key, because projects rarely go as planned. So you need to be able to talk about that, and also when you transfer from one CDMO to another, realize that this is going to take some time, both to build up the relationship, but also to do the tech transfer. It never goes as completely as planned. So, but maybe the most encouraging insight was that you need to have a shared purpose. So you need to both really want to bring therapies to patients. It's not a service that you provide and that's it. You really go in it for the long run and for the success of the biotech.
Absolutely, yeah. A shared vision is key. One thing that can be a challenge for companies is when to start that relationship with the CDMO. So from your experience, when is the right time for a biotech to start engaging with a CDMO like Northex?
The small biotech usually has some idea of how the process is going to be during clinical development, so the production process. But the sooner you engage with experts, and that doesn't have to be the CDMO right away. You could interact with a CMC consultant, so to make sure that you're on the right track. So the earlier the better on a process development point of view. And then when you have a process that you either talk to your CMC consultant or your CDMO, then before GMP, you need to have your relationship established with the CDMO, so you can really build the process together in their facility and work on a long-lasting plan.
And so a key topic of discussion at the workshop was also the CMC process. So in your view, which CMC milestone boosts company value the most?
Yeah, the discussion at the workshop was which CMC milestone is boosting the value compared to the previous.
I mean, tech transfer was one of the things that kind of came out on top, but there was a lot of kind of discussion and controversy about that. But it did look like the later phases seem to be the most important for boosting value.
Yeah, I think that is a logical view of the audience and the biotechs that were in the panel, that the later phases bring you more value. But having said that, you need to come to the later phases.
Yeah.
So I think phase 1 and especially phase 2, when you go into patients, is where it becomes easier for a biotech to interact with investors and get traction there. But I think the consensus at the workshop was that the later phases, phase 3, when you move to your commercial site, was definitely a value booster.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust also came up a lot during the discussion, and communication and relationships. From your perspective, what tends to break trust in CDMO sponsor relationships? What are the most sort of common friction points you've observed from kind of both sides?
Trust is something that you need to build up, and you need to build it through continuous communication. So when communication is lacking or not optimal, that is, I think, the start for losing the trust. So you need to make sure that you get to know each other, and that could even be like a team building exercise that you also repeat, because a relationship doesn't just stay great. Things will happen. I mean, you will have problems here and there that you need to solve, and you need to solve them together. But if you don't do that, if you have a very rigid structure between a CDMO and a biotech, and this is my responsibility, that's your responsibility, then I think you lose the trust quite quickly. So you have to go a bit beyond just a normal service provider and service giver. Really build this integrated structure. Being in each other's project team, I think, is really important.
So when should a biotech seriously consider changing partners when that kind of trust is broken? How do you tell that there's nothing that can be done to fix it, or whether switching might create even more problems?
Yeah, well, I hope that lost trust is not a very common reason for changing your CDMO. I think there could be different reasons that you change, or that you add a CDMO because you want another site, or that it's based on cost or distance. At the workshop we heard that it's quite good to have a CDMO where you can go to, so in your neighborhood would be an advantage. If the trust is broken between a biotech and a CDMO, then I think the first thing to do is to try to fix it rather than just walk away. Because you've built up a relationship before, you've done quite a lot, you've invested from both sides, so I would hope that you can still fix the trust issue by communication, by putting things on the table, and maybe doing a restart, saying that, well, okay, we've gone apart a bit, but let's talk about it. How can we bring us each other together again?
Absolutely. And so Nordic Biologics was recognised in 2021 as a national innovation hub for advanced therapeutics and vaccines. Congratulations. What advantages does being based in Sweden provide for your customers?
Yeah, Sweden has a culture of collaboration between academia, industry, small and large pharma, and this is, I think, I'd say it's in our DNA. This collaboration, it's quite easy to talk to people. You don't have to go through different layers and then back down again. You can, and it's also expected. And so being an infrastructure gives us an opportunity, but also an obligation that we offer our infrastructure, our knowledge, our experience to people who need it. So bright minds from university who want to start a company, they don't have their own infrastructures, and then they can work with us or with other infrastructures to establish themselves. And I would say this fits really well in the Swedish culture. It's you don't do things completely on your own. You try to collaborate with others so you can complement experiences and capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything I've got from this conference so far, recorded in Gothenburg, all about the Nordics is that kind of sense of collaboration and communication and building each other up, which is nice. And so NorthX has set an ambitious goal to become a leading manufacturer in advanced biologics, as you mentioned. That is a crowded and competitive space with some big players. So what is your strategy for differentiating NorthX in the market?
Yeah, it is a crowded space, but there's also a big need. And more drugs in development are biologics, and there are huge advantages to that. So I think our way forward is to continue on the path of being flexible, being the complementary to the biotech, offering our experience already early in the negotiation process. So before you have a contract, we talk a lot to the biotechs. And then we don't mind collaborating with other CDMOs or service providers, because we don't have everything. So sometimes we need cell line development, and we can work with someone doing that. So I think having an open mind so that we can be flexible towards the innovators and provide solutions that work for them, so they don't have to wait a year. We try to do things as quickly as possible.
Are there any areas or modalities that you're looking to kind of expand into in the future?
So, as you said, we have a broad area of modalities. Unfortunately, the mRNA hasn't really taken off. We can do that, but so that's maybe an area where we won't really put that much emphasis on. But the vesicles, both on the bacterial side, so the outer membrane vesicles, and the extracellular vesicles on the mammalian side, that's where we see good traction for us. We've shown that we can do it also into GMP, so I think that's definitely something where we would want to work even more than we do. Then in viruses and viral vectors, we have quite some experience in the area of biosafety level 2 and 3. So I think there also we can continue to help in the development of vaccines. And then we'll see what comes along. Maybe the synthetic biology is something that we will need to be more active in. So we try to follow closely on the developments in the area.
Yes. And in terms of the CDMO-Biotech relationship, how do you think you can better work together to continue that innovation? Is there anything you think, in your view, needs to be changed or viewed a different way to help that relationship move forward and push into new innovations?
What we would love to do is to work close with the innovators also on grant funding, and to help them with good applications and to also take part in consortia, so European consortia, where not only have one innovator and one CDMO, but you can have more service providers that can all work together. So that is an area where we definitely, in the alliance space, where we definitely want to do more than what we're doing today. Because we strongly believe that this Swedish mindset of collaboration can definitely be exported to in between other countries as well.
And so finally then, do you have any advice for biotech executives and external manufacturing leaders about building successful relationships in CDMO partnerships? Maybe something that came out of the workshop or just something that you've been thinking about?
I think that in the next phase of the interaction between a biotech and a CDMO, there will be more integration between the two partners. Now it's still we and them, even though we work on the same projects. I think we will be more integrated in the development journeys, almost like embedded teams, and also come in earlier. So to set the CMC strategy very early, so you avoid tough situations later where you may not even be able to go on with the development. So get in the advice earlier. And then I think there will also be much more data-driven. But my advice to biotech leaders would be involve your CDMO early. So let them see your challenges and not only your purchase orders, and choose a partner that listens and adapts and feels like part of your team.
Great, that's lovely. Well, thanks a lot for your time today, Janet. I appreciate it. It's been good talking to you.